this record-breaking season. We go qualifying in MotoGP. Qualifying with the prize name at the top of the leaderboard in the earlier FP2 session. That's top of the sprint Saturday number 22 in 2025. South Africa, rain this morning. Really strong on practice Friday as well. Fastest. It's Pedro Acosta was who led the way on day one, although he's had a bit of drama at the end of that FP2 session. Acosta's looked in fantastic form so far here in Valencia. Late crash at turn 4 has put the pressure on his Red Bull Caging Factory race mechanics as they look for a repair job to get him. A few bikes are ready for the upcoming Q2. First of all though, it's qualifying one. It's always a heavyweight session these days, isn't it? It will feature Brad Binder, 20 Grand Prix Ramal Fernandez, on the wildcard of Espargaro, and the Man United found MotoGP World Champion twice, right in Valencia. He's in the Zarco, Marini, Renzi returning with Vinales, Mascianini, Augusto Fernandez on the Yamaha, Rivera on the farewell ride of MotoGP. Juan Martin, good to see him back in action, back to some Chacho Nicola Williams, running in Marc Marquez. They are your riders in Q1. Costa Bezzecchi, Morbidelli, Alex Marquez, Agura, Miller, Di Gianantonio, Aldeguer, Mir, Quartararo. Those 10 riders can relax in this opening Q1 session because they're already through last second. Minute Q2. So it's always tough to get some corners and again one of those two places to get into to make sure that you're going to see too much risk from Martin in for the final time. Or the number 1 plate on the factory Aprilia. It's not about chasing hot laps and chasing big results here this weekend for Martin. Just about chasing and restoring some lost confidence after what has been a nightmare forgettable 2025 of Martin. So far for one half of track now, with Agura fit fastest yesterday's best Friday of the season. Fastest this morning's FP2. What do you want to do though for his teammate Raul Fernandez?
Well, he's, I guess, one of the riders who took the lines, how fiercely close it is, and how through doing very little wrong, you can find yourself on the wrong side of that Q2 cut-off. Fernandez yesterday did a 1:29.806. He was half a second off the pace. He really missed the place in the top 10 by just over a tenth of a second. We're expecting the margins to be super fine in this Q1 session, which puts some pressure on Pecco Bagnaia. His hopes of finishing third in the World Championship already slim at best. Surely they're effectively gone if he doesn't clear this hurdle and get out of qualifying one.
Yes, third looks like it's out of reach. Maybe a 2025 which will see Bagnaia finish P5 in the championship. He's only 3 points clear. Pedro Acosta. If you're sort of parting with some hard-earned cash on one of those two who was most likely to prevail here in Valencia tomorrow, you'd most likely be putting some of it on Acosta right now. Johan Zarco, well, he has given us some great moments, hasn't he, in this year's MotoGP World Championship. Getting the
time to go to work.
Yeah, it's time to get down to business. Johan, Q1 for the 9th time so far, 2025. So here we go, our final Q1 session of the season underway then very shortly. Two factory Ducatis side by side. Bruno Goodell, the number 11 bike, here we are, relatively still sticking around to take part in the Tuesday test here in Valencia. So green light then is cleared at the end of pit lane, out of the shade and into the sunshine here in Valencia. Some of the fastest riders in the world, hoping to be at least one of our top 2 fastest in this opening session. Themselves in the fight for our 22nd pole position. The campaign, we have 5 riders in 2025. 5 pole positions. Marquez 8, Fabio Quartararo 5. Second, 4K, Pecco Bagnaia 3. Position so far this season. And for Alex Marquez in front of his home crowd in Catalunya.
weekend. The wild cards of Spargo and Augusto Fernandez adding to the field. Second qualifying session was coming up for Nicolo Buliga. Another challenge awaiting him as he tries to learn how to ride a MotoGP bike rather than getting into his old superbike habits, which he slipped into last Saturday when he crashed in the Tisa Sprint. Buliga, let's say, doing his long-term calls, no harm at all. Continuing to be the MotoGP rider in the future. Yes, he was 24th yesterday. He was only a second and a quarter off the outright pace, which at this level is not a lot.
Haven't seen too much of Luca Marini so far this weekend. His worst Friday yesterday since the Austrian Grand Prix at the Red Bull Ring. Honda kind of hit the blockers in there as well in Portimao last time out. So for all the great work that's been done behind the scenes on the RC213V, Portimao, and so far from Marini's case here in Valencia, and still plenty more to do. Must try harder will be the end of season school report. He's getting a little bit out of shape on the brakes, goes Bastianini into that tight left hand in the turn 2. Standard Friday, I think, as far as Mayer is concerned. Of course, we had the pleasure of being joined by 10-3 boss Hervé Poncharal yesterday, ahead of Monsieur Poncharal's farewell MotoGP race, and at times he wasn't exactly like what he saw on screens, was he? When he joined us yesterday from his Italian rider. We know that Enea, doesn't matter where he qualifies, he will always work his way forward. The problem is he qualifies so poorly.
Yeah, we often see him rocking up the order in sprints. In fact, the last couple of Tisa sprints, he's gone from 16th up to 13th in Portimao, 19th for the crash for Augusto Fernandez, second of the weekend for the number 7.
Yeah, Augusto Fernandez then has tipped off. That's going to bring out the yellow flags into turn 8. Fernandez is down.
How many riders were ahead of him? How many riders were behind him? That could be quite key then as we come around on this first lap. Bagnaia, the fastest rider through the first 2-3 sectors of the field. He did 20.1 in the first sector. Only Brad Binder said that. Bagnaia in the second sector did 24.2, which is as fast as anybody in this Q1 session. Straight into the 129s for the two-time world champion. He's ahead of John Zarco at the moment. Of course, a lot of these laps will get scrubbed off due to the yellows.
That's Bagnaia's fastest lap of the weekend so far. Straight away then, immediately out of the pit lane, Bagnaia flies in a 129.732, which is slightly, not much quicker than his 29.833 set yesterday. He won't care what lap time he produces as long as he gets into that second qualifying session. Really tricky turn 4. High-profile characters there so far this weekend include Portuguese Grand Prix winner Bezzecchi, fastest on Friday here at Valencia Acosta. Aldeguer's already bit the dust there too on the Gresini Ducati.
The 3 riders who did catch the yellows were Aleix Spargo, Jorge Martin and Raul Fernandez. None of them did lap time that would have put them in the top 2 as it stands for the moment, but they were behind Augusto Fernandez's crash and therefore have no live lap time next to their name at the moment. Bagnaia and Zarco continuing their fast start for this Q1 session on their second laps.
That as well coming in from Bastianini. He said to the media last weekend, it just shows when he rejoined the circuit, having had some bodywork damage after his early contact with Frankie Morbidelli. He was able to just have clearly road ahead of him and run his braking markers, run his normal lines. I think they may have set the 4th or 5th fastest lap of that Portuguese Grand Prix. So what's not been really in question throughout the season on the RC16 has been his race pace, but he just has not been able to get anything out of the Michelin soft tyre in time attack mode. That's not the case for John Zarco at the moment. That's a brilliant lap from Zarco. Zarco has just put in a 129.586 as Raul Fernandez now swings towards the finish line. Fernandez now occupies P1, tight at the top then. Fernandez with a 129.554 leads the way, but there's not even a tenth of a second covering your top 3. Fernandez, Zarco and Bagnaia.
This is a good lap 2 from Aleix Spargo. He won't be too far away from the top 2. It's going to be a mid-29 for Aleix too. He's within a tenth of a second of Raul Fernandez. That's only good enough at the moment though for P4.
Yeah, Zarco's picked up 3/10 of a second compared to yesterday. Raul Fernandez likewise 3/10 faster. So as we suspected, this Valencia circuit a little bit cleaner yesterday, and certainly with some rubber laid down. As Toprak Razgatlioglu then already trying to pick up some advice from Yamaha's current superstar. So much excitement, so much anticipation to see the A-lister, the superstar box office sensation from World Superbikes on the MotoGP next season. Already trying to learn from the best of the Yamaha over the last few years. The mouth-watering prospect is going to be next year. Fabio Quartararo and Toprak ValenciaGP, the Turk, going head-to-head on Yamahas in MotoGP next year.
And it looks like he's rolled off on this most recent lap, sporting that tribute helmet to the Valencian community, which he holds very dear to his heart. So Fernandez at the moment by 300ths of a second from Zarco, who's 600ths ahead of Bagnaia, who is 6,000ths ahead of Aleix Spargo. They in turn have a 4:10 buffer over the next best, which is currently Miguel Oliveira, putting in his best lap of the weekend so far on the Pramac Yamaha.
Steep learning curve ahead for Toprak ValenciaGP. He would, I'm sure, be a very keen observer on his World Superbike phone. Nicolo Buliga's performance in Portimao last weekend. Buliga saying that the massive difference that he found. Of course, a lot more electronics on MotoGP bikes. Brakes, lighter, a lot more horsepower, but it's the tyres, that's the big difference. The funny rubber over 2 Michelin's going to be the toughest transition you feel as far as ValenciaGP is concerned. But we'll have a triple World Superbike champion mixing it with the best of the best in MotoGP next year. Marc Marquez looks on once again from the pit wall. We'll be witnessing Pecco Bagnaia get himself out of this Q1 session, which as it stands at the moment is not the case. Bagnaia is close to second, which is all he needs, but he's still 600ths behind this man, Johan Zarco. He's trying to keep himself, just keep the heart rate down, himself ready for this second time attack. He's hoping it won't be his last time attack in 2025.
Bagnaia, well, at the moment he only needs to find a 10th of a second, but he's going to have to get himself into the sort of low 29s to feel anything like comfortable in the back stages. He's gone out very early, not timed though, I wouldn't have thought, to do 3 runs at this stage. It is a relatively short lap, just under 90 seconds, but by the time Bagnaia gets round, they're only going to be around 6 minutes to go. So this is the final run, and potentially the final qualifying action of Pecco Bagnaia in 2025 if he doesn't find some time.
1:29.240 is the best time we've seen so far here this weekend in Valencia. A 1:28.931 is Maverick Vinales' 2023 all-time lap record, which may well come under a bit of threat, particularly in Q2. Jorge Martin then, well, he will not be sticking his neck out, pushing for a real competitive lap time. If it comes, then great. But I bet your last dime that Martin is not going to be pushing anywhere near his limit. He said yesterday another crash, but while he's still very much in recovery mode with the a disaster. I think he's been warned by the doctor. We're not too sure in 2025 in particular just how much more your body can take. It's taken such a pounding, hasn't it? Such a beating right from pre-season testing. Just 13 laps into the defence of his World Championship, it all went horribly wrong for Martin. He has scarcely been fully fit at any point since 2025. Then on the money, this is a good lap from the double MotoGP World Champion, and a strong first sector.
Pretty much matched the first sector he did on his first run, Bagnaia. It might have gone great, but only thousandths away from what he did on run 1. Sector 2 will be completed just as he comes through turn 7. He's now lost a further 10th of a second relative to Ralph Fernandez, but he will surely be fueled up for the rest of the session here, Bagnaia, so he'll have 3 time laps to try and dig himself out of the hole that he currently sits in.
Ralph Fernandez at the moment in prime position to fight for pole position here in Valencia. He's out on fresh rubber, pulled into a second time attack, and he's making it work. Fernandez already got a bit of confidence coursing through the veins after that 1:29.554 in his opening run, and immediately slotted himself into top spot. He's going to take this away from Zarco and Bagnaia on this cut lap, isn't he, Fernandez? If it carries on through, Bagnaia then powers back through Ducati out of the final corner. Long run down to the finish line, and that's more like it from Pecco up into P2. A 1:29.584, only just in the P2. 2 thousandths of a second he moves ahead of Zarco. Look at this from Martin. This would be something super, super special. Not just to watch, but just for Jorge Martin's shattered confidence. At the moment, he's not even a tenth of a second covering the top four.
Shattered. Look at Ralph Fernandez, who's about to finish at the fastest lap time of this entire weekend so far. Pedro Acosta yesterday afternoon set a 1:29.240. The all-time record around here is a 28.9, which has been set on an Aprilia. Maverick Vinales. Ralph Fernandez on the current iteration of the RSGP. He heads for the line. It's going to stretch him well clear of Pecco Bagnaia. It's a 29.0 for Ralph Fernandez. That's the second fastest lap we've ever seen here.
Brace yourselves, 28s are coming. 28s coming. Listen to the applause. Fernandez is getting inside that factory Aprilia garage. This is brilliant by Martin.
Could sneak second here.
Here comes Jorge Martin then now through this tyre punishing turn 13. He'll drop down the hill. Second gear. Looks all steady, doesn't it? This is Jorge Martin in conservative mode. Just imagine what he's like when he's going to be fully unleashed. Bagnaia has rolled out of it now. Then Martin and Binder on good laps. Oh, Martin up to 4 for the 1:29.630. 5 riders now in the 29s. Bagnaia's got a problem. Has he run out of fuel?
Surely not. 3 minutes to go, surely, but he's got a problem. It's ended Bagnaia's Q1 session. He ain't going to have time to get back from there. Bagnaia is currently second, but can't defend that second place.
Oh, technical woes for Bagnaia. At the moment, Ralph Fernandez is just decimating this Q1 field. Over half a second clear. Bagnaia's over. Pecco Bagnaia's qualifying in 2025 is over. And that picture pretty much sums up the story of 2025, doesn't it? As far as the Italian is concerned, he's looking at the left handlebar, flipping the throttle. Motor's running, isn't it? As he comes through 6, gets off the circuit.
Yeah, we saw him cruising, I think, on the outside of 8, so he's made it quite a long way around the lap before realising that he better stop it. Has he had another warning on the dashboard? Because we can't see that from the onboard camera. Pecco Bagnaia clearly recognising that bike needed to be pulled over the side of the road, and that is a 2-time MotoGP World Champion who is done with 2025.
That is another massive uppercut to the jaw of Bagnaia. Oh, he's had to take some big blows in 2025, hasn't he? It's another one in our Swan Song Grand Prix of the season. This has been sensational by Martin. In the 2 minutes where he finishes at this session, Martin at the moment is 5th. There's still 2 minutes and a little bit less of this session remaining. So Ralph Fernandez is cruise control. Cruise control in Q2. Brad Binder with a 1:29.5 and 6:1 is over half a second back. It's tight then behind Binder in that battle for second place. Bagnaia, we know he's out of it. He's out of contention. Forget about him as a Q2 threat. Bagnini maybe. This could be close. Oliveira 2.
Spargo as well. He's very close. Quarter of a second off. Bagnini only 8. He's into the 29s, but nowhere near enough. Oliveira then out of the final quarter 2. He's already in the 29s, currently in 7th place. Makes no progress. Watch this though from Alicia Spargo, who could be about to look to Q2 appearance on board his Honda, which is essentially going to be the basis for the 2026 bike. Here comes the 41. He does take second place.
Briefly. Zarco took it less than half a second behind him. Zarco used Alace there as the reference. You can now look above the screens, Lucia, because you're going to be very happy with what you're about to see. Because Zarco, with the late show, has put in a 1:29.460 with 30 seconds of the session remaining. I think Trackhouse can relax because this has been a brilliant Q1 as far as Ralph Fernandez is concerned. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum is Pecco Bagnaia, who's getting another scooter ride back to the paddock. Getting worse and worse as well for Bagnaia. And when the Ducati went kaput on him, he was second. He's now going to be starting this sprint and Grand Prix here in Valencia at best on 15th. He's been dumped back down to 5th place. He's going to be only 1 place ahead at the moment of Jorge Martin. Really maybe producing some late fireworks. We're watching the number 10 factory Honda. Who's only just over a quarter of a second at the moment outside of the top 2. There might be a Honda rider, threatening a Honda rider here. Marini on course for potentially P5. He's halfway around this 4th split. Nothing going on this current lap as far as Binder is concerned.
He's going to take the checkered flag in 4th. So 14th as it stands on the grid for Binder. Marini currently 8th. Should get a legs at least of Bagnaia here. He goes up to 3rd place. It's half a tenth shy of knocking his fellow Honda rider Zarco out. So now Pecco Bagnaia, when he walks back into the Ducati box, will see himself in 6th place, and the door slams shut in our faces. It's a door that Pecco Bagnaia wants to slam shut on this season.
Yeah, he has had enough. He must be sick to the back teeth of 2025. Look at him. A face that tells the story of what has been a wretched, wretched season. I mean, it was always going to be a massive, massive task to wrestle 3rd place away from Bezzecchi, but now from 16th place on the grid with Pedro Acosta coming up in Q2 next. Pecco Bagnaia said 2nd in the World Championship this year was not good enough. Well, he might end 2025 in 5th overall. He's only 3 points clear, as mentioned, of Acosta. 16th on the grid, around one of the hardest tracks on the calendar to make overtakes on. How many times have I said this over the last few weeks? Can it get any worse for Pecco Bagnaia? Well, it can.
And it has. Looks up to the sky, not again, he says. Of course, Pecco Bagnaia has had such a successful stint as a factory Ducati rider, but 2025 has been a season of psychological punch after punch. There was the man who's dealt out a few of them to him this season, Marc Marquez, but Pecco Bagnaia, who is one of the most polite and chilled personalities you'll meet in this whole paddock, with a face of thunder, he can only take so much.
The last time he went 5 Grand Prix in a row without scoring a point was all the way back in his early Moto3 career in 2014. Well, he's going to be starting outside of the point scoring places in the Sprint and Grand Prix here in Valencia. No problems, no dramas whatsoever. What a classy performance that was from Ralph Fernandez. It's been some sprint Saturday so far for the American Trackhouse team. Ayagura opening his account this morning, leading FP2. And now Ralph Fernandez continues Trackhouse's excellent Saturday because they've been undefeated so far this morning. The fastest in practice, Ralph Fernandez fastest in Q1. 4-time the last 9 Grand Prix. Pecco Bagnaia has not been able to negotiate his way out of Q2. Johan Zarco did. Might have to buy a little bit of money behind the bar for Aleix Espargaro on an occasion, because it was the Honda test rider Zarco used as the ideal reference, get himself to that 129.460. Martin on his comeback performance, and there's been so many comebacks so far. For our ex-world champion, well, he's out-qualified Oliveira, Rins, Bastianini, Vinales, Augusto Fernandez, Tomcat Chantra. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. He was looking for some confidence-inspiring performances. Well, I think he's just got one.
You said to Jorge Martin when he arrived here on Thursday, you only missed Q2 by a tenth and a half. He would have bitten your arm off. Sensational effort from him and from a fellow Aprilia rider, Ralph Fernandez, who walked it in that Q1 section. 4 tenths clear of a close pack behind him. Look at all those riders on 29.5. So it was a 29.4 in the end that you needed to get through. Johan Zarco achieving that. Marini and Aleix Espargaro next up ahead of Binder, and the livid Pecco Bagnaia, whose last qualifying session ends in Q1 6. Jorge Martin next up ahead of Oliveira, Rins, Bastianini the first Tech 3.
New track out of Aprilia is coming up in our final qualifying action in this year's MotoGP World Championship. Ralph Fernandez dominates Q1, joined in our second qualifying session by Johan Zarco. Up next, it is the final showdown, the final battle for the last pole position in 2025. Welcome back then to the Ricardo Tormo circuit here in Valencia. Spectacular helicopter shot. is, and what we are led to believe, going to be very, very pleasant autumnal temperatures around 20, 21 degrees by the time we go into the T-Show sprint this afternoon, 3 p.m. local time. 15 laps for our final sprint showdown of the campaign. Next on the agenda, up next for us, is what we hope is going to be a very tense and nail-biting last qualifying action in 2025. At last Q2, at last pole position will go to one of Pedro Acosta, Marco Bezzecchi, Frankie Morbidelli, Alex Marquez, Aya Gura, who led the way in FP2 this morning, Jack Miller, who was a top Yamaha yesterday, Fabio Di Gianantonio, Fermin Aldeguer, our Rookie of the Year, Juan Mir, Fabio Quartararo, Val Fernandez, who's just dominated Q1, and Joan Zarco. Big story in that first qualifying session, a late technical issue for factory Ducati star Pecco Bagnaia, and we'll see the Italian close out an horrendous 2025 on 16th place on the grid. Hands are all set, ready for action. I believe there's barely a ticket to be had for our final Grand Prix action of 2025 here tomorrow. Looking forward to this one. Keeping a very close eye on proceedings from pit wall is current MotoGP World Champion Marc Marquez, having missing this final Grand Prix for injury, and that current World Superbike Champion ahead of his public debut here on the Yamaha Y-Star M1 Compact Vans Captain Oglu. Let's go down to Jack in pit lane.
Yeah, unfortunately, Top Rack at the moment unable to speak to the media whilst he's still under contract with BMW. We'll be able to hear his first thoughts when we get to Sepang in the new year, but I was able to chat very briefly with him there about that test in Aragon, and he said he really did enjoy the opportunity to be out there on the Yamaha for the very first time. I said, enjoying watching? He said, no, not at all. I'm a racer. I want to be out there, and he cannot wait to throw his leg over the MotoGP bike on Tuesday. Of course, he said, been looking at some data, but not too much. I just want to go in with a free mind and attack it on Tuesday and see what I can do.
And we are all very much looking forward to seeing what the Turk can do. He has been absolutely supreme over the last 3 years. Been World Superbikes, World Champion for Yamaha and for BMW. Pedro Acosta then, well, he was the fastest rider on Friday with a 1:29.240. His ending to FP2 though this morning ended in dramatic fashion. This is him went upright and looking good and rapid and strong on the factory KTM. A brilliant shot, this, isn't it? This is the iconic turn 13 shot. I remember Nicky Hayden treating some spectacular shots on the Repsol Honda back in the day, the Glory 990cc era. And Pedro Acosta, well, he ended FP2 on the floor, crashing at turn 4, which we feared may well being just have one bike available for this Q2. Right on the scene is Jack. Jack, is it one or two bikes?
It's two bikes, and Acosta will be going out on the bike that he was doing that FP2 session with. We saw great work by Marco Bezzecchi's crew to get him out on that crack.
That's a joke with some of our Spanish TV colleagues there from DAZN. February. Unfortunately, the next time we'll see Mark back on top of the factory Ducati. Yet Pedro Acosta, well, it took him until round 21, 7 days ago in Portimao, to take his first front row start to the season. And he improve on that and go one better today and take pole position to become just our 6th different rider on pole position in 2025. One of those previous poles has gone the way of Alex Marquez. To back double podiums recently for Alex, including a win in the Malaysian Grand Prix, a win in the Portimao Sprint. He's ending an excellent 2025 just as he started it on a high note, isn't he, the 73?
Q2 underway in this Q2 session. We just have one KTM rider. Potentially, though, that KTM rider is the favourite coming into this qualifying session. That, of course, is Pedro Acosta. 2 Honda riders now in this session, with Joan Zarco joining Juan Mir, having navigated his way through qualifying 1. We have a trio of Aprilias. We should watch them all very, very closely. Bezzecchi, who was second quickest yesterday afternoon, Ayagura, who was fastest in FP2 this morning, and Ralph Fernandez, who cruised through the FP2 session we saw earlier on. Today we have the two Yamahas of Fabio Quartararo and Jack Miller. Here is Fabio Quartararo going for yet another pole position to end the season. Would be his sixth. If he can take it today, and of course everyone else in this Q2 session are on board. Ducatis.
Yet the pole king, but he can't be denied that crown in 2025 has been Marc Marquez. He's going to get a special Tissot watch for the Tissot Pole Award in the FIM Gala here in Valencia tomorrow. One of several accolades that Marc has cleaned up with in 2025. Nice new shiny Tissot watch, a nice new shiny BMW. For some top qualifying performances as well. The Hoy Martin, a double pole position starter here in Valencia. No great surprise to see Martin not getting out of that opening qualifying session. Take nothing away from him though, it's still a brilliant performance by the Spaniard. He qualified just one place behind his former great enemy, of course, Pecco Bagnaia. So that's outlaps completed. Let's hope that 2025 MotoGP qualifying ends with a bang. So many brilliant Q2 laps throughout this campaign, haven't we? Pedro Acosta looking for his first pole position of the season. It's Marquez, just the one pole so far for him in 2025. Second for the flurry of late poles, started it in the Red Bull Ring, the Zano in front of his home crowd, Andalika, and of course he top qualifying 7 days ago at the Algarve International Circuit.
Pedro Acosta has just got that Bez up ahead of him on the factory brilliant, and he's just off behind. Acosta, the fastest rider of this group in the first sector, he did a 20.0. As we saw Ralph Fernandez doing 19.9 in that first sector earlier in Q1. Acosta's really smashed the second sector. He's pulled out a couple of tenths on Bezzecchi, so Acosta in the zone here as he goes through this first lap. And of course, given what we've seen already from this season from Acosta, a few errors on Saturday mornings, quite important here to get this initial banker on the board.
Yeah, still not seen a 128 lap so far here this weekend in Valencia. Don't keep us waiting too much longer, fellas, as Pedro Acosta then drops down, attacking hard on the front end of that KGM into this tight left-hander. The final corner went so crucial just to pick up the bottle at the perfect moment in all the drive and acceleration. Down from the start finish straight, we're already getting close to those 28s. The opening salvo from Acosta has put him immediately into P1, just where he ended the Friday action in Valencia. A 129.298 then from Acosta. Your provisional front row very early on after the opening time attack is Acosta, the Gian Antonio and Ralph Fernandez. Although that could change. Look at this from Frankie Morbidelli over the line. Morbidelli powers the VR46 Ducati on the front row in third place. It's super tight at the top once again as Bezzecchi's run off. Bezzecchi is off the circuit and in the gravel trap. Is that at turn 6 maybe?
Turn 2, I think, for Bezzecchi, who's up behind Fermin Aldeguer, and he has a big moment there as he tries to get that a pretty stopped into turn 2. So Bezzecchi currently 6th. Morbidelli, of course, his last MotoGP win came here in 2020. So did his last pole position, of course.
0.06 of a second covering the top 4 after that first time attack. It's been ultra close throughout the weekend here so far in Valencia. Yesterday, not even a second. Split the top 19 riders at the end of practice. We're going to get a 28. We're not going to surely have to wait too much longer, are we, for that 28? Here comes Alex Marquez, Ayagura, who's already set his stall out in style this morning here in Valencia. He was fastest in FP2. Morbidelli once again is producing a super strong lap. Alex Marquez then is coming to the line. Will the 28 come from Acosta? Over the line we go. No, not quite. Alex Marquez, there we go. There is your first 128. Delivered right on cue by Alex Marquez. So close to a new all-time lap record. It's still in the hands of Vinales. Agura fires himself up into P6. What about Morbidelli? Surely this is going to be his first 28 of the weekend. It could be provisional pole for the 21. Has he nailed the final sector? Over he goes, not quite. Morbidelli up the second.
Quartararo, as he always does, is launching a qualifying attack on board the factory Yamaha. So it's now a 10 between Alex Marquez and Frankie Morbidelli. Acosta did not improve on lap 2, which is why he's now a third of a second back. Both Trackhouse and Pretty is currently on the second row of the grid, either side of Fabio Gian Antonio. Bezzecchi with that mistake into turn 2 is now relegated back to 8. Quartararo then rides towards the finish line, and he now moves up onto the front row of the grid.
Real big statement lap by Alex Marquez, a 128.967. Just before he put in that lap, there was 600ths of a second covering the top four. There's now over 0.3 of a second covering your top four. To the tablets is Marco Bezzecchi. For that mistake at turn 2, he needs to find something in his second time attack, because having not been able to complete the full stint on that initial run, soft tyres, he's down in 9th place.
It's for Ralph Fernandez. What a morning. How's that happening at the moment? Fernandez, who did do a 29.0 in qualifying one, so we know he's capable of a lap that could put him on the front row. Really, he might be about to set it right here and right now. There's a gap potentially he can fit himself in between Morbidelli and Quartararo if he holds this to the line. Here comes the 25, who of course still has another brand new tyre available to him at the end of the session. He doesn't improve in the ending position. It's another 29.3.
Just coming into the picture there, and I'm not sure if he made a mistake, and that he just looked like a ball lap and then come into pit lanes. It looked like he was getting a little bit squirrely on the gas coming out of that final corner. Mir down in 8th place, so he's not exactly a prolific pole starter, is he, Alex Marquez? Just the 2 previous pole positions in his MotoGP career, but at the moment it's going to take some beating that 128.967 across the floor, looking for back-to-back front rows to end his qualifying performances in 2025. John Zarco, who came through Q2 with Ralph Fernandez, is at the back of this opening session. So at the moment, your front row is Alex Marquez, Morbidelli, Quartararo. Costa, Fernandez and Gian Antonio would be starting inside the top 6. You're at 7, and what will be a third row with Mir and Marco Bezzecchi. Expect plenty more to come though from Bez. Pole position in 2 of the last 4 Grand Prix. Shame we didn't really get to see what he might have delivered on that final lap of his first run. He made that mistake going into turn 2. Gonna find half a second though if he is to knock Alex off top spot.
As good as the Aprilia race pace quite clearly is, we saw it 6 days ago in Portimao. Winning from 9th on the grid in Valencia is a tall order. We've spoken already through the weekend about how difficult it is to overtake around this circuit. It is so tight and twisty, not really a long straight to speak of beyond the start-finish straight, which is your main overtaking spot. So if you find yourself deep in the pack, 3rd or 4th row, with Pedro Acosta up the road in 4th and Alex Marquez in such good form on pole, then Marco Bezzecchi can surely kiss goodbye to his hopes of winning this season finale from there.
Since the 4-stroke era began in 2002, Marquez in 2014, Danny Pedrosa in 2017, Mir in 2020 and Alex Rins in 2022, with only wins in 23 off the front row in MotoGP. Coincidentally, they all started from 5th place. So if you qualify on the front row of the grid here in Valencia, you're giving yourself a great chance of being in the hunt for the victory. 19 times in 23 the win has come since 2002 on the front row on the grid. Ralph Fernandez at the moment is just off that front row. It is tight, really, really tight from sort of Quartararo downwards. Just over a 10 splits Quartararo in 3rd, down to Aguero, I guess you could say, in 7th. Although Aguero is not exactly miles clear of Mir and Bezzecchi. Still a 2 down in 10th place is what? 2 tenths, just a little bit. Not even 2 tenths behind Quartararo in 3rd. Mir off the front row then. 7th place, but not even 2 tenths back at 3rd.
That's what we're talking about with the 5 margins in this session. If you just make one small mistake, if you're a metre wide at one corner, or you just miss your braking marker at any one of these 14 corners, it could cost you a couple of rows on the grid. Marco Bezzecchi is sent you to turn 4, where we saw him make a mistake yesterday afternoon, and he's now dialed in through the first sector on the 72.
Lovely this from Bez, beautiful. Through 6 he goes, pick up the throttle. It's really dark now down towards this high-speed turn 7. You're up to 5th gear here, about 250 kilometres an hour. 3 gears in now to this 90-degree 2nd gear, turn 8. And into the tight infield section. You've got to be careful as you're going through turn 10. How many times do we see riders walk out the front here as they're going through one of the few right-handers? This is absolutely brilliant by Bez. Bezzecchi and Quartararo, who were both on the front row of the grid, weren't they together in Portimao last weekend? Well, Bezzecchi is taking this away from the field, just as he did in Portimao last weekend. He drops down then now into turn 14. 1 corner remaining for Bezzecchi. At the moment, this could be a 28.6, a 28.7. Let's track him over the line on the factory Aprilia. It's a 28.8, a 128.809. Thank you very much, Marco Bezzecchi, on course for back-to-back poles to end 2025. What a lap.
New all-time lap record, but for how much longer? Here comes Fabio Quartararo after a sixth pole of the season. It's a 28, but not enough for pole. It's the front row for Quartararo. Miller up behind him on the Pramac Yamaha takes fifth place.
Yeah, Pitley's used Quartararo there as a brilliant reference anyway. That's a brilliant job by Jack Miller up into T5. Iagura then now has been pushed to the back of the third row in ninth. Acosta, just about to say, Acosta's going the wrong way at the moment, now down in sixth place. This is more like it at the moment, though. He's not really going to be posing any significant threat as far as Bezzecchi's current pole time is concerned. 128.809 is what he's chasing. Is he on the front row? You bet he is. Acosta then finds his own 128.9. Just under a tenth of a second now splits Bezzecchi and Acosta. Bezzecchi, Acosta, Alex, your front row.
Rossini duo are trying to lift themselves up the order. Aldeguer climbs 4 places, 11th up to 7th. Alex Marquez isn't far off here, and you might have noticed on Bezzecchi's lap, he did lose time to Alex in that final sector, so this will also be very, very close. Alex Marquez across the line, and he now goes into second place. He's also now notched a 128.8, as has Digia, who takes third from Acosta.
Acosta now, though, has just set the fastest first sector in this session. He's all in, isn't he, for that first pole position of 2025 in the last Grand Prix. Better late than never as far as qualifying points are concerned for Acosta. First time on the front row just 7 days ago over in Portimao. Ralph Fernandez, who was challenging the front row, wasn't he, a few months ago? Well, he is again, a 128.867. There's not even a tenth of a second at the moment, splitting the top 5 riders on the grid. How close is this going to be as well as far as Acosta's concerned in the fight for pole position? It's going to be super, super close. He comes through the third sector. He'll start now climbing up through the third gear, turn 12, up 1 gear now. Fourth gear, just under 180 kilometers an hour for this real time-demanding turn to 13. 1 corner left then for Acosta. Needs this lap now, back in 5th place. Surely this will push Acosta back on the front row. Will he be pole position here in Valencia? Over the line he goes. No, he lost in game. Well, that's a surprise. He did not make any gains there in that final sector. So Acosta then, as he heads towards the final stages of this Q2 session, still P5.
Maybe you heard that some of those recent MotoGP wins around here have been taken from 5th place. That's about as far back as you dare start in the MotoGP era to win this Valencia Grand Prix. He's less than a tenth of a second off pole, so he's not done an awful lot wrong. For the moment, only 5th. He is still pushing on, though, on this current lap. He's within a tenth through the first sector. Alex Marquez looks like he's got one more crack at this to try and get himself up for second on the grid and deny Marco Bezzecchi back-to-back poles.
This is going to run it by Bezzecchi. Ended his first run in the gravel, upright, but off the circuit at turn 2. Closing out qualifying now in 2025, potentially with another Tissot watch strapped to his wrist is Bezzecchi. Can anybody stop the factory Aprilia star? It looks like Alex is cruising. I think Alex has rolled out of it. His qualifying performances in 2025 are done and dusted. Alex potentially then will be closing out the year with what would be his 14th front row start, which actually would move him ahead of Mark. He would be the most front row starts of the campaign if Alex can hold on.
Best is just dropping off these soft Michelin tyres now. They've done, what, 3-4 time laps on these now. There's still 45 seconds to go. Bezzecchi is still trying to defend his provisional pole. At the moment, no one is taking aim at it. Quartararo has already pitted. He's settled for 6th at best.
Fabio Quartararo getting a bit of a splash and dash. This will probably get him out for a practice start because obviously he won't get another lap in this session. A few riders were inside that top 3 at one stage in this session, weren't they? For Gian Antonio, we certainly have to mention the Italian who has put together one of his best performances. You know, going to be his 3rd front row start of the campaign for Digia. Second on the grid in Austin, which he did convert into a podium in Texas. His last front row, though, was a bit of a disaster, wasn't it? When he had the pre-grid drama on the MotoGP 25 in Hungary.
He usually goes better in the sprints of the Grand Prix than he did in qualifying, and the sprint race actually looked pretty good yesterday. So Digia might fancy his chances from there. Well, it's not a disaster for Pedro Acosta. He didn't really do much wrong, as I said, in that qualifying session. 96 thousandths away from pole position today for Pedro. Problem is, 4 riders beat that, 2 Aprilias and 2 Ducatis.
Nothing going here late on as far as Aldeguer is concerned. Certainly in terms for pole position. Guess that will be fine. Only one front row start this year for Aldeguer. Don't think it's going to be 2. Certainly won't be 2, is it, as he now comes into the final sector. Fabio Di Giannantonio, when we last came to race in Valencia back in 2023, will tell you constantly that he should have been on the podium. He was initially on the podium. Of course, he then got busted with a tyre pressure penalty. I remember actually even doing the press conference with Fabio when we were waiting for confirmation from race control. Eventually, unfortunately, they did have to hand the trophy over to Giant Arco on that occasion. But we know then that you can produce top performances here in Valencia. He's done it on that occasion. But your final pole position of 2025, and it seems fitting that once again we get another all-time lap record in this record-breaking 2025 campaign. Goes to factory Aprilia star Marco Bezzecchi. He will end the season then with back-to-back pole positions. What a 7 days in Q2 it has been for the 27-year-old Italian. A nice little belated birthday present as far as Bez is concerned. So he's so watched to go with some of the other gifts that he's been given so far this weekend. Present he really wants though is another sprint victory and another Grand Prix victory, which will of course secure him 3rd in the World Championship. I think that's done. Bezzecchi on pole. Pecco Bagnaia is only right up to 3rd in the championship, 16th place on the grid. We've had so many brilliant qualifying sessions throughout 2025, some of the best single laps you will ever see in history, and we are closing out with another corker. Less than a tenth of a second, covering your top 5 riders on the grid. Only 13 laps sprint this afternoon at 3 p.m. local time. Final Grand Prix over 27 laps tomorrow. Well, in Q2, certainly he was simply the best.
The appetite nicely, doesn't it? For the sprint later on, should be super close between anything from 4 to 5 or 6 riders. To start off the season, or at least his 3rd sprint row qualifying. And Alex Marquez at the end unable to improve on run 2, and it cost him pole to Bezzecchi.
9th pole position of his MotoGP career then for the Italian. Got a stunning second half of the campaign, hasn't it? Hard to believe really, isn't it, that Marco Bezzecchi wasn't on the sprint podium until round 10 in Assen. He's only podium before a close second to Marc Marquez in the Dutch TT was that victory at Silverstone. Once we tipped in though to the second half of this historic 22-round campaign, well, there's been podiums for fun as far as Bezzecchi is concerned. 2nd in Brno, 3rd in Austria, 3rd in Hungary, 2nd in Misano, DNF in Mandalika Grand Prix where he was clearly the favourite from pole position. 3rd in Australia where his hopes of victory were really dented by the double long lap he got before the Marquez instant over in Indonesia. A double podium last weekend in Portimao. Maybe tough to bet against him having another double podium to round off 2025. Alex Marquez, well, he does indeed finish with the accolade of having the most front row starts in this year's MotoGP World Championship. It was a dead heat between him and brother Mark, 13 apiece coming into this final Grand Prix, but Alex pinches that one with his 14th. Fabio Di Giannantonio, well, he's got a bit of a score to settle with Valencia. What happened to him in 2023, where he did cross the line inside the top 3. The tyre pressure penalty saw him push back to 4th. Yeah, he's definitely out for revenge, is old Digia. So far, so good as far as the 49 is concerned.
Look at the other qualifiers who will perhaps look back on their day and feel a little hard done by. Morbidelli did a 29.0. That only put him at 7th in the end. Quarter of a second of pole position, not even on the front 2 rows. A weekend that's promised a lot so far for Frankie but in the end he will start from row 3. Coming Aldeguer will also join him on that third row. He did a 29.1 in that session. That was only enough for 9th, and never really came together for Honda in the end, did it? In that Q2 session, no rider on the front 3 rows. Mir and Zarco, 10th and 11th.
Top 5, all inside. Mario Vinales is now old. 2023 Valencia all-time lap record. We want a closest front rows of the season, one of the closest top 5s we've had of the campaign. Let's hope it's as tight and as action-packed as that Q2 was in the sprint and the Grand Prix here. Yeah, no wonder Marco Bezzecchi's got a beaming smile on his face. He is loving life at the moment on that factory Aprilia. He's gelled with the Nuali factory engineers. Massimo Riva saying last weekend he was perfection in Portimao. Hard to argue with that assessment really, as Bezzecchi didn't put a foot wrong at all, did he, in that Algarve International Circuit Grand Prix. Keeps racking up the P2s, whether it be in the sprints, the Grand Prix, or in qualifying, doesn't he? Alex Marquez, P2 overall in the World Championship. Fabio Di Gianantonio makes it 2 Ducatis on the front row of the grid. Italian bikes once again locking out your top 3. Looking forward to hearing the thoughts then about final front row starters in 2025. Third on the grid then, Fabio Di Gianantonio. The Jack.
Fabio, what a way to kick off this final round of the season. It's been a roller coaster year, but great.
I said yesterday that the main goal was to achieve a great result in qualifying, and this morning my only thought was QP, a great lap. At the end I done an amazing lap because 28.8 is a great time. Super happy. We worked really well this weekend, so the feeling is definitely there. I'm enjoying a lot the riding the bike. Yeah, we start from front. See what's us for the future.
Look this afternoon.
Thank you.
First front row start in 8 Grand Prix. Well, first time he's qualified in the front row since the Balaton Park round in Hungary. We'll be hoping for better luck on this occasion. Yeah, that's a top ride by Di Gianantonio, as he said. That is a class lap time. 128.853. Fair play to the Italian, second faster than what he managed yesterday here on Friday. Alex Marquez coming to speak to Jack shortly for what will be his 19th front row start in MotoGP, 65th in his Grand Prix career. Can he topple Marco Bezzecchi? He wasn't able to do so in the Portuguese Grand Prix last weekend. Second on the grid though for the rider, second in the championship. Alex for Jack.
Alex, it looked like we're going to be treated to another showdown between you and Marco. Great job in qualifying. How prepared are you?
Not 100%. Not like Portimao, they see that still we are missing, the grip, action. We are losing quite a lot, but we'll try today in sprint to give our best. We'll see which one is their choice also on the rear, because will be quite interesting. So yeah, the track is not super fast. It's not super clean. It's not super fast, and it's difficult many times to understand well what is the factor. So we need to learn from the fastest guys. At the moment is Marco and someone else. We have in Ducati that is Morbidelli, quite impressive on the rhythm. So we'll try to give our best and to not make mistakes.
But later.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack. Thanks to Alex Marquez. Double podiums in Malaysia and in Portimao. We make it 3 in a row to sign off what has been a memorable year. Firstly for Alex and of course for the Marquez family. A historic first ever 1-2 for siblings in the MotoGP World Championship. Standing in the way of Alex conquering Valencia. He's been on fine form in front of his home crowd so far this season. His first victory in MotoGP coming in Jerez. He also won at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, didn't he, Alex, earlier on in the season? Marco Bezzecchi is going to take some serious stopping. Turned 27 earlier on this week, didn't he, in Valencia? And he's on pole position for our season finale. Bez with Jack.
Marco, pole position once again, this time for the season finale. You're in great form right now. Just how comfortable do you feel going into Winton, obviously, Grand Prix? Yeah,
it was a super good session. I had a lot of fun, especially obviously in the second time attack. In the first one, I made an early mistake and I was a bit too nervous. So when I went in again on track, I tried to calm myself down a little bit and to focus just on riding well, and bike worked perfectly, obviously, and super happy because the boys made a very good job. Now we can focus, of course, on the sprint and on the GP tomorrow. This track is super close. The gap between all the riders are super close. Sorry. So will be super tough, but we can enjoy. Hopefully, I can make a good start and fight with the best.
Hey, Matt, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, another great lap, another great performance. Thanks, Jack. Marco Bezzecchi, he has been victorious here previously in Moto2, and he signed off 2025 in style. Probably a rider has never won back-to-back Grand Prix, so more history potentially beckons for Bez. This is him working in perfect harmony, working in perfect tandem right now, isn't he, with that factory Aprilia RSGP. You do feel if Aprilia can make more gains forward in the winter, we know the Ducati certainly aren't going to be standing still. Could we see Aprilia emerge as the strong contenders to end Ducati's unrivaled domination of MotoGP in recent years? Well, Marc Marquez on the grid, unfortunately not in the way he would have liked it to have been here in Valencia. He'd love to have been getting himself set ready to attack in the sprint and the Grand Prix. This is Marc Marquez had to receive the keys to a very nice, new, shiny BMW, our top qualifying performer in 2025. 8 pole positions in his first season as a factory Ducati rider. Started life in red with pole position in Thailand, poles followed in Argentina, in Austin and in Qatar, further poles in Aragon, Sachsenring and in Hungary. That is the reason why the BMW M Award will go to the number 93. This is a special prize-giving ceremony. It's won BMWs for fun, hasn't he, down the years, Mark? 8 poles then this year, 13 front row starts, and now, once again, we'll get hold of a very, very nice Beamer.
Found out while he was in the supermarket, didn't he? Last Saturday morning, when Alex Marquez didn't take pole in Portimao, and officially clinched it for the 93. He's got quite the fleet of BMWs back home, hasn't he? This is not his first rodeo in terms of winning this particular award. Of course, not the circumstances that Marc Marquez would have liked to secure this. It does add yet another accolade to what has been a glittering 2025.
Yeah, a 2025, which without any question has seen Marc prove that he is back to his brilliant best. That pole position he took in his factory Ducati debut in Thailand was really the catalyst to the most successful season in MotoGP history. And Marc Marquez will end 2025 with 545 points. That is a record points tally in MotoGP. It would have been well north of 600, maybe even 700, had we not seen Marc miss the last 4 Grand Prix of the campaign. Yeah, good to see Marc, and good to see him back to his best in 2025. So he gets the award, the BMW M Award, as the top qualifier. Axel Mittler, marketing manager at BMW, just checking how many times his name's on there. I think quite a few. This is not breaking new ground, isn't it, as far as Marc Marquez is concerned? He's probably got enough to open a BMW dealership himself. Probably sorting out a franchise contract here right now, isn't he, the number 93? CEO, of course, Armando Espeleta. He will be very much a focal figure of tomorrow night's special MotoGP award ceremony. He will have the honour of once again crowning Marc Marquez MotoGP World Champion for the 7th time. Well, there you go. Factory Ducati proved the key to more success in MotoGP in 2025 for Marc Marquez. He gets the keys once again as the top qualifier in 2025. The BMW M Award then presented once again to the 32-year-old Spaniard.
Promised that he would take Alex Marquez for a spin, didn't he? After winning that award. Perhaps that will come a little bit later on today. Alex has got his own job to do, of course, having qualified on the front row of the grid today for the Valencia Sprint, which comes later on. The fastest rider over one lap and the fastest rider over 22 Grand Prix this year has been Marc Marquez.
We might be getting a word with Mark about what he thinks about being a top qualifier in 2025. First and foremost, though, he's just going to pose for the photo. I think somebody in the grandstands has just shouted, "If you don't want to have it, Mark, we'll gladly take the keys." Yeah, with Marc Marquez, top qualifier, top of the World Championship, back on top of the world, back to his brilliant best in 2025.
Still on 60 on this thing, he's probably asking to the officials nearby.
Yeah, I'm used to 300 horsepower on my right hand on a factory Ducati. A few more ponies under his right foot when he does take to the seat of that nice new shiny BMW. Of course, the riders still presented with Tissot watches for pole position. Nobody in history has scored more MotoGP pole positions than Marc Marquez. So what does he think about being our top qualifier and the owner of a new BMW in 2025? Down to Jack.
Mark, congratulations, the 2025 BMW M Award winner. But as you said, not bad to go shopping for avocados and you end up with a brand new BMW car.
It was exactly like this, I promise. I was watching, I was there shopping because, you know, it was for the lunch time, and I was watching the practice on the telephone, and Gemma was shopping the fridge, and yeah, then I saw the image in the box with Alex that I win the BMW, so super happy to receive another one. We won a lot in the past, but now was a long time, so yeah, happy, and I win it.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So unfortunately, after that pole position in the Balaton Park, Mark was not able to secure any more poles, but just look at how many times he's got his name on the BMW M Award. He saw his brother Alex come very, very close to finding pole position in the final Grand Prix of 2025. That honour, though, goes to a factory Aprilia star, Marco Bezzecchi, who closes out the season with an all-time lap record and the last pole of 2025.
Marco Bezzecchi topping a super tight Q2, 10 covered the top 5. Bezzecchi, Alex Marquez into Gian Antonio's front row. Raul Fernandez, 4th, second best qualifier for him this year, ahead of Pedro Acosta, 5th, and Fabio Quartararo, despite getting into the 28th, only 6th. Frankie Morbidelli leads the 3rd row. The first Honda to Admir in 10th. Ahead of Joan Zarco and Ian Guru, who topped FP2, but could only manage 12th. Pecco Bagnaia, a miserable Saturday morning for him after technical problems on his Ducati left him 16th, 1 place ahead of Jorge Martin, who rode out of his skin to take P17 on the grid for the sprint later on.
Well, it promised so much and it delivered. Yet another fantastic MotoGP qualifying session. We get confirmation this has been the cards for quite some time, hasn't it? Marc Marquez then leads the BMW M Award, and as you have just seen, he has been presented with the keys, 8 pole positions and 13 front row starts total for the 93. Nobody in Grand Prix history has taken more poles than Marc. His tally now, as we end 2025, up to 74. Next best was Mick Doohan, the Australian legend, with 58. Q2 then delivered. It was another super special qualifying, what should be another super Saturday here as we go into our final sprint of the campaign with Marco Bezzecchi on pole position for the 2nd time in 7 days. What a way to end Q2 in 2025 for Bez and for Aprilia.